everyone, welcome back to Everything Miniature, and today we're going to be finally customizing my turtle figures into the Fortnite characters. So here's what they look like right now. This video took 2 weeks to fully make, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Alright, so what are we going to do first here? Alright, so first off, I actually used some Play-Doh and stuff, and I put it on their shells to kind of like add on the details that didn't have like their scars on it, and then kind of rounded off Raph's like front shell because it was pointy at first. And I also took some hot glue and I made Raph's like wrap, which is going to be a wrap soon, on his wrist. So right now it can still turn, and it totally looks like a cast right now. So see, I added on those details to it, and I did not do that on camera because I did not want to mess up. So that's what we have right now. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to make another wrap on Raph's other wrist. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Alright, so I'm going to use my hot glue gun stuff, and I'm just adding a thin coat where I want the cast to be and stuff. On the wrist, on the arm, however far you want it to go up. Then it should look like that once you're done. Now we're just going to go ahead and not use any hot glue. We're just going to use the hot nozzle of it to kind of like make it nice and smooth, just like that. Alright, and you have been warned, hot glue is very hot, so be careful. So you're going to make it nice and smooth. That took me about 10 minutes to do, make sure it's fully, like, smooth. Alright, so now that one's done. Its wrist can still bend, which they won't in a little bit once we start adding the paint. Which is sad, but oh well. It looks like little boxing gloves. So that's what it looks like right now. Alright, so now we're going to go and use some nail polish remover and try to remove those eyes. And may I add, the nail polish remover did not work, so I just ended up painting over them. Yeah, so go. So now we're just going to go ahead and add some Mod Podge onto the hot glue so we can go ahead and paint it, because the paint will not stick with the hot glue on it unless you add a good coat of glue or sealer, which that's what Mod Podge is. So we're going to go and do that. And onto the shell, the front of the shell. Alright, so now I'm going in with some Tucson red, and we're going to go ahead and paint his bandana. I love this red, because obviously that red can't stay, so I'm going to go ahead and set that off to the side to dry. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and work on a little tiny pizza with some Play-Doh. So here I am just molding it out, making a little circle, then having like some, that's going to be cheese hanging off at the end. Right there, so I'm using my dotting tool, and we're going to go ahead and add some texture to it, just like that, leaving a little around the edges for crust. I'm going to go ahead and let that dry, or remove it. Alright, so go ahead and we're going to use some black Play-Doh now, and we're going to go roll it out, making sure it's kind of thick, and we're going to go ahead and turn it just like that. And we're going to shape it to look like a gaming console, then we're going to allow that to dry. Alright, so here's what Mikey looks like so far. So I've added on his Play-Doh like strap around his chest. So now we're going to go ahead and paint the front of the shell. So I'm using some warm brown, some dark orange, some King's Gold, and then some white acrylic paint. You need a big mess right there. You don't need that much. You just need a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and mix some dark orange, a little bit of the warm brown with the white, and then some King's Gold till you get a color you like. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint over it. And I repeated that with Raph too. So it's going to go with both turtles. And a lot of the stuff I did not actually do on camera because it took so long to dry, and I just didn't want to do it because the video was already like really long. So now we're going to have some more King's Gold now that the Play-Doh has dried, and we're going to go and paint on some cheese. Just like that. Now, here's the gaming console and stuff. I'm painting it black, but I actually ended up painting it a lighter gray. Well, I can say a dark gray and stuff, just so you can see other details on it. Now we're going to have some white paint on Raph's wraps, and we're going to go ahead and paint them white. Both of them, just like that. Alright, so still doing that. And now they're really looking like casts. I don't know what else you'd really call them at the moment. Alright, moving back onto Mikey. I dry brushed on some warm brown onto the rest of his shell, so you can go and see all the details, because otherwise you'll not be able to. So yeah, that's what the rest of his strap looks like on the back. And so we're using some hot glue, and we're going to go ahead and add on some dots onto his hand so we can paint the silver in the end. And I also added a little bit of hot glue on top of the orange band, so you guys can see that. So I also added some on the other little orange band. So on the orange band and then above the orange band, there's a little bit of hot glue. Alright, I'm also doing that to his ankles. We're going to go make some ankle wraps too. So, yeah, there's what they look like once we're done. We're going to smooth this out with my hot glue gun. Yes, see, the ankles can still bend at the moment, but they won't be able to in a moment. Moving back onto the pizza, so I went ahead and I also added on some green to look like the little vegetables on it. So these are 1x1 inch pieces of cardstock. It's a nice light brown. So we're going to go ahead and stack and glue 7 of these together. Alright, so now we're going to cut out that little pizza off the piece of paper that it was on. It was just easier for me to put it on there while I was painting it. Alright, now we're just going to glue it on the side, making sure some of it's still hanging out. Then we're going to glue on the remaining 3 on top to look like that. So we got like an open pizza box looking thing. And I'm using a pen, and I'm going to go ahead and draw a line going around it. So there's still going to be a light brown frame, and it's going to look like that in the end. Alright, so now we're going to go in with this light yellow paint, and we are going to go ahead and paint a nice big circle in the middle. Just like that. And I went back in with some dark orange and then some Tucson red and painted like a little frame around the yellow circle and then a red triangle in the corner. Alright, so now we're heading back onto the pizza box, and we're going to go ahead and do some dark orange, and we're going to go and do a little pizza crust right on top of that, because that thing in the corner is actually going to be a pizza. I'm also using some holiday green, and I'm going to go ahead and paint on some leaves. At least that's what I think it is. And I do not play Fortnite, so I just used some images I found on Google and was trying to copy them the best I could, so I probably missed out on a few details. There we go. Moving back onto Mikey, we're going to go ahead and use some black acrylic paint, and we're going to go and paint that orange band he has on his wrist black, along with the rest of his skin, leaving a little bit of the fingers hanging out, so they should look just like that in the end. And I also did the same thing on his ankles, leaving a little bit of his skin kind of hanging out in the back, so we can paint that white in a minute. Alright, so moving on to Raph's sides, let's go ahead and start working on those. So I'm going to go ahead and cut them a little bit so they're a little bit thinner on the blade. So just like that, we're going to go ahead and cut them. Once you're done with that, I used my hot glue gun and I made some little details like little tassels hanging off the top, and then a little bit of hot glue on the blade part, and then a string hanging like on the sides of them, so they should look just like that. We're going to paint those with some Mod Podge just so we can go and paint them. Moving back on to the game console, here's how it looks. I painted on all these details and stuff of other colors, and I'm just giving it a coat of Mod Podge. Moving back onto that pizza box, we're going to go and use some of that yellow paint, and we're going to go ahead and paint on the little cheese on the pizza slice, leaving a little bit of red hanging out just so you see some of the sauce. I'm also going in with this darker orange, and I'm also going to go and paint on some stripes and some dots, just like that. Then I'm also painting on some more of the Tucson red onto the pizza box. It could look like it's saying something in the corner, even though it's really not. Adding on some pepperonis, at least I think it's pepperoni. Then making illusion that says pizza on it, even though it doesn't. Obviously I cannot write that small. Adding on some little red dots onto the pizza slice. Alright, so now that Raph's cast, we're going to call them, are dry, we're going to, after several coats of white paint, we're going to go ahead and paint on some black stripes, just like how I did here, make them look like wraps. And I also cleaned them up with some more white paint stuff, made them a little bit thinner, and kind of made them more perfect. Moving back onto the pizza box, here's how the game console turned out. So I used some like purple, pink, orange, and green on it, and some yellow for all the paint colors. And then here's how the pizza box is looking. So for the pizza box and the game console, there's like these green straps holding them together. So I have some green ribbon, 2 different shades of felt, and then some green fabric. So I ended up going with the light green felt for it, and I glued it around on there, and then we're going to add a dot of glue in the middle, and we're going to go ahead and glue on the gaming console, just like that in the center. Now we're going to go, I cut the felt into thin strips. We're going to add some glue on both sides of the pizza box, just like that. And we're going to go ahead and glue it on there. And then flipping it over and gluing it on the back, just like that. Trimming it off. Alright, and so the pizza box is done. It's looking very good. Alright, so I'm also taking my X-Acto knife and I'm kind of bending the edges so it's not like perfect. It looks kind of like it's been through worn back. So now we're going to go and paint on their shells. So I'm using the colors here on the sides. We're going to go and mix them all together. Just like that. And then we're going to go ahead and paint it on his shell. Moving back onto Raph. Alright, so here's how he's looking so far. I added the warm brown for his details on the front of his shell too. Alright, and I also painted his shell, and I also went back in with some darker brown paint, and I added, like, painted on the cracks too. Alright, so now we're going to go with this color. It's called green. It has, like, a nice shimmer to it. I love it. Alright, so it matches his skin tone almost perfect. So we're going to actually put, like, a bunch of little dots on his arms, legs, and face, just like that. So it actually turned out pretty cool because it has, like, a little bit of shine to it when you look at it. So we're going to go ahead and do. I also moved over to a toothpick just because I needed smaller dots. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, moving on to Raph's size. So I'm using this silver paint. Don't know the name of it, but we're going to go ahead and paint it on his size where it would be silver and stuff. And I went in with Tucson Red and I painted the tassel and his handle on it. So we're going to go ahead and do that to both sides. Now that my piece dry, let's go ahead and see where we're at. So I added on some of the white to his feet and then his wrist, and we're going to paint on those thin black lines like how we did to Raph for his wraps. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Oh, we're going back onto Raph. Now we're going to paint on some black onto his elbow pads and knee pads. Doing it extremely slowly because I don't want to mess up. Then I'm going to go ahead and do that. Paint with his knee pads. Alright, now we're using this espresso color for Raph's size, and we're going to paint them where we added the hot glue to make it thicker and stuff. So it actually makes it, in the end, it will kind of look like it's sitting inside of like its holders. So that's what we're trying to do here. And I'm also painting on the hot glue line that I added. Alright, moving back onto Mikey. I painted his elbow pads and knee pads black, which I was actually supposed to leave black, but I went back over and painted them brown, and I added them back to black. So you're going to see the color change. Like, see, I'm using espresso, and I'm going to go and paint on his belt and then strap, just like that. Then I'm using my Cricut here to go ahead and cut out the shapes that I need for the elbow pads and the shoulder pads, knee pads. Alright, so here's all Raph's stuff that we're going to be needing. Alright, so for Raph's shoulder pads and stuff, we're going to take the biggest dot of glue to the bottom of it, glue on the medium-sized one, glue it to the bottom, and then glue on the smallest one to the medium one, just like that. You're going to repeat that with both, so it should look like that in the end. So I also bent them a little bit, just so they have a little bit of curl to them, so it's easier to glue on the shoulders, just like that. Alright, so now we're going to add a little bit of glue right there on his shoulder. And I'm not gluing it all the way, just so his arm can still move, like, up and down. So just like that. Alright, so yeah, see, his arm can still move to everything. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and glue on the knee pads using the biggest one. And we're going to go and glue them so it's at the same length as his knee pad straps that he already had on. So we're doing that right here. Then we're also doing the same thing with his elbow pads. And then the smaller set of the hexagons. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and paint them with brown, and we're going to paint all the elbow pads, knee pads, and shoulder pads that same color. Just the hexagons, not the black part we already painted. Now I'm adding on some silver details to them, so I added it to one. So what we're going to go ahead and do is get some silver paint on our little tool here, and we're going to go ahead and go around the edges of the hexagon just like that. Then I'm also adding on 3 little dots to it, just like that. Alright, so now I'm going in with some warm brown, black, brown, and silver paint, and we're going to go ahead and dry brush it onto the elbow pads, knee pads, and shoulder pads, just because it makes them look more realistic. So here I'm going in with some warm brown. We're going to go ahead and paint that. Then I'm also going in with some black, just to add on those details, make it look like they've actually been used, and the turtles have been fighting crime, hopefully. And I'm also adding some of those silver dots and stuff to Ralph's shoulder pads, so I already went around with the silver trim on all of them. Then I'm just adding on dots onto each layer that we did. Alright, so here's how Raph is looking so far. It's looking very... Alright, and so now we're going to go and use some hot glue, and we are going to go ahead and make some lines all the way around his legs, just like that. And this actually made it so Raph can't no longer sit, so I think I've maximized on taking out every point of articulation in these figures possible. So we're just going to go ahead and continue on, because they're going to look pretty cool in the end. So we're going to go and do that. Moving back onto Mikey, we're going to add those silver dots onto those hot glue dots we made earlier. So we're just going to go ahead and fill those in with the silver, looking just like that. Alright, and so now we are going to glue on Mikey's knee pads and elbow pads. So we're using the biggest hexagon onto his knee pads, just like that. Alright, now we're going to go and glue on his elbow pads. We're using the 3/8 by 3/8 one, so which is the second to smallest one. And we're gluing them on just like that. Alright, moving back onto Raph. Now I've already painted on his lines onto his legs, so we're going to go ahead and... I made these little squares out of Play-Doh, and we're going to go ahead and glue them onto his belt and his brown straps. So I'm finding the ones that can go ahead and fit him. Alright, so here's how they look whenever I've glued them on. So I have 4 on the belt, a small one, or 2 small ones, 2 big ones. And then for the little brown straps, I have a tiny ones and the big ones on the bottom. For Mikey's elbow pads, I added on all the details. They look just like that. Alright, now we're going back in with some silver. We're going to add on the trim just like how we did to Raph's knee pads. So I went back through and I added some silver buckles to Raph's straps and his belt. So here's how it's looking so far. Now we are just going to go ahead and go enough the Tucson red. So now we are going to go ahead and add on this Tucson red to Raph's R on his belt buckle, and then these little stripes on all of his bags. Alright, so moving back onto Mikey now, we have the hot glue again. We're going to go and add on those straps like how we did Raph. He has 2 on his left leg and then 1 on his right leg. We're just going to go ahead and do that really quick. Alright, so here's, once I've added on some brown to it. Alright, so what are we doing now? Alright, we're taking some of the brown Play-Doh and we're going to go ahead and glue it on like how we did Raph's and stuff. So we're debating on what size we're going to use for him. Here's how they are looking so far. So I added 2 on his belt and then 2 on his straps, just like that. And we're going to go ahead and paint them. Moving back onto Raph, let's go ahead and check out those size. Alright, so they're all painted and stuff. I added all the details to them. Alright, I also made this other clay bag and we're going to go ahead and glue it like in the middle of them. First we're going to see what the size looks like on Raph's shelf so far. So we're going to put those on there. Kind of see where we need to glue it. Alright, I think that's actually a good size for what we're doing. Alright, so I also went ahead and I sewed the bandana part that goes on the back of their head. So I took some fabric, I went around my sewing machine, stitched around it, and then I used Tucson red to go ahead and paint it. I know it's not fabric paint, but it's just going to have to work because that's what I have at the moment. So that's what we're working with here. So Raph's straps, what we're going to call them, they're kind of glued off to his like left side a little bit. They're not like in the middle like what you normally see, so it always is going to hang on his left shoulder. So let's see where we're gluing it, kind of right there on his left side. Go ahead and glue those on. It's still gluing them. So we're doing, looks like the shorter one first. So I made one longer, one shorter, and they're about 2 inches long, I think the longest one is. So you can make them as long as you want or as short as you want. So there we go, that's what they're looking like so far. We're going to do the same thing with Mikey. Alright, so I made his a little bit more different. It's definitely Raph's and I. Alright, so I used dark orange to paint on Mikey's mask and then his like straps that we're gluing on right now. So we're gluing them on the back of his head, right in the middle there. So we're gluing them on just like we would for normal straps, kind of having them like hang in the front, just like that. Alright, so now here is the finished result and stuff. I think he turned out so good. Very proud of how they turned out. So alright, so I painted on all of his dots and stuff like how we did for Raph. And then because the details took so long for me to do, I spent like an hour and a half painting on their details. I did not do that on camera. So I've also added on some of the brown like underneath, like between their shell and then their front piece of their shell, just so it looks like it's attached because it makes more sense to me doing that. So they have lost articulation at the ankles, wrists, and they can no longer sit down. So like I said, I think I've taken away every inch of articulation we possibly could. So here's what the feet look like. I have an X on there, and then they look like they've been kind of like stitched together based on the pictures I was going off of. Got some gauze showing through on the back, and don't drop them because they're extremely fragile. Don't do what I just did. Alright, there's what they're looking like. So here's what it looks like from the back. So everything is completely detailed. I'm trying to capture everything with this big camera in front of me. It's not like the best camera to be like recording on because you can't really zoom in. So here's what his gloves look like. So I had like these gray dots all over it, just like that, kind of in a line, silver things on them. So it looks very detailed, like this brown strap for his glove. I also added these black parts onto his belt, and then some lighter brown like on the sides, like for stripes on their little pockets, a silver buckle on the strap, and then here's how his pizza box looks like how it turned out and stuff. We've already seen it, so it's still looking good. So I kept it separate from the turtle just because I want to actually remove it and stuff and do everything so it fits. So I'm just attaching it on with wax, and no, the pizza box does not look very good from the back we just saw. Alright, so we're just attaching out some wax. There we go. If you just want to see it on the back there for a second, that's as good as it gets because it looks kind of bulky. But I wanted the option of it being removable just because it's nice to have that option. Here's how Raph turned out. Alright, so added on all of his detailing and stuff. So he's got the red R on his buckle. He does have articulation at the ankles, like Mikey, just not at the wrists. Alright, so he can no longer sit down either because of all of his straps I've added. But it's like, take a pick between highly detailed things or no movement. So I guess I went for that. He can still move at the arms though, because of the way I glued on the shoulder pads. So that's actually really, really cool. Then here's like how his knee pads turned out, and then all of his siding on like the buckles and stuff. Alright, we've also got some silver buttons on the pockets. And then I also added like some warm brown stripes like onto the little brown pockets also. And I also painted underneath in between his shell and then his front shell. Not sure what else you really call it. You could put the shoulder pads back down, so I've kind of pushed them because they are just paper, so they're kind of more movable and stuff, so that makes it easy. He looks so good. I'm so happy with how they came out. Still see all the freckles and stuff on him. I'm gonna call them freckles even though they're like random little green dots. Still kind of detailed from the back too. Alright, so doing now. Alright, we're gonna put him down for a second. Here's his size, how those turned out. So I added on the details and stuff like how I did. And I painted the brown. I think I forgot to mention the name of it was called Espresso. I painted with it. Alright, so it looks kind of good from the back, but I don't really worry too much about the back because these are just more like random accessories. So I attached them on with wax and stuff, just like how I did with Mikey's pizza box. And it doesn't look horrible, but I'm just kind of glad I didn't glue them on just because I like having the option of doing both. So I think these guys turned out so cool. I'm very happy with how they turned out. So we can also remove the wax just like that, peel off from the back. Don't recommend leaving the wax on for long term just because I don't know what would happen. Alright, well thank you guys so much for watching and patiently waiting for this video. I know it's been a few weeks now and stuff. So if you guys want to see me do Leo and Donnie, make sure to leave a like and subscribe and stuff so you don't miss out on another video. And let me know what else you guys would like to see next. Bye!